the crowd tonight. Do we have a sign downstairs directing people to come up here? Okay. So, first item, minutes of August 26th. What is wish of the board?
Move is written.
Moved by Nate. Second?
Second.
By Jeff. All right, any changes?
Yes.
Jeff, go ahead.
All right. So I was present under the voice roll call, and it was marked absent on the first vote under the return to school plan. We have it marked as 4 in favor and 1 against. I thought it was unanimous, but I could be mistaken. I couldn't find it in my notes, but.
I noticed that too when I was when you look at it.
Return to school plan.
4D.
4D, I believe.
Where are you? You drove towards the bottom of the page there.
Yep.
All in favor.
All in favor? Yep.
Good call.
Trying to take a page of the yearbook.
All in favor?
And then under item number 7 on the minutes, informational items, Nate Oxnard asked if the school board had any type of catastrophic insurance. I recall correctly, Amber Wheeler said that we are in fact covered, not that we need to review.
Yes, she
I
did
just
give me-
gave him the notes for that.
So it should say, spoke to an insurance company and we are covered for such events. Okay. So the orange part should be replaced with that. Spoke to an insurance company and we are covered for such events.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
That's okay.
Amber's sorry. All right, any other changes?
The final 2 roll call votes, final 3 roll call votes, I am marked down as a Zach Langlois.
Well, it's a dream come true.
It is.
Come true. We've all wanted that
No, just Jeff.
at some point in our lives.
It's
Just
just
Jeff.
All right. Any other changes? All those in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up, public comments. Looking for the public. Seeing no public, we're moving on. Agenda review, we're going to add an item F, and a quick discussion about the calendar. And actually, I want to get the board's opinion on our next meetings, so why don't we add that as G, if that works. Any other changes? Okay. Let's see here. Do we have any consent items? None. Bus routes. Kelly, you're up.
Did you get the copy from Kathy?
Yes, and we have them in our packets.
Okay. Alright, so I didn't make a lot of changes. One change that I made actually, as suggesting their accounts was to take, I'm sorry, purple bus, I did change to PM drop-off orders, so we're now going up Meeting House like we were before, then we're heading for Old Center and Griffin to get those students that get on first off. And then we come back across and do Church, Candid, and Cole. So that's the first students on the bus in the morning, we get quicker off in the afternoon.
Okay.
Because they were the first line last off. The other one is the pink bus. On the B cohort days, I took off 5 students off the orange bus because they were overfull with our capacity limits right now. So they will be on that bus. So that's basically from the school to the sharp corner, go to White. Those students there on B days will be on pink bus morning and afternoon.
Okay.
And that helps us keep our count. So we're gonna keep an eye as we go along, so we're gonna do little tweaks as we keep within our limits.
How'd everything go today? No kids chasing buses down the road?
I
Everything
don't
went?
think so. I was on the bus run, so I missed the afternoon. How was it go?
The unloading and loading was great. I did notice that there was one particular bus that had a lot of kids on it, as opposed to a couple other buses had very few. So I'm sure you've heard about that from either the driver or.
I actually didn't get to talk to them after the run this afternoon. And so I had calculated them all out by pairs, singles, the whole 9 yards, so that I could see what they would look like.
I'm assuming you'll be reviewing this obviously as you start getting some data back as well to.
Right, and as if you get any changes, so they change their mind about being a car rider, or they change back from the mode, what have you, they're letting me know as they come in, so I can look and see.
Okay.
If we need to make a change, we may have to do it quickly, but we'll get it done so that we can keep things even.
Okay.
And keep our eyes on that. I don't know if sports are gonna be starting, what have you, then maybe, that might take a few of the afternoons. It seems to be the B days that are the big ones. For some reason, however that worked out, the B days are the big ones. But they're all right around orange is always good. White has a bigger morning on A day than they do in the afternoon on B days. That's a little bit forward. And then of course orange, like I mentioned before. Orange is only on the B days that they're high. The A days, they're right around 16. And that's where a lot of the buses are between 16 and 20, except for those 2 on certain days.
Okay.
And doesn't need to be guys with. Even blue on a B day, in the afternoon. So I think a lot of families are driving in the morning, but then they need their kids to pick up some weekend in the day. So that's the extra. So keep our, like I said, we're keeping an eye on it. As they make changes, I'm going to try to listen to the county, see what it's like, and keep it, try to keep it adjusting as much as possible.
Okay.
So that's basically, as far as the groups go, that was the afternoon drop off for purple, and just taking those students off the B-Day for orange right now.
Okay. Nate, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Any developments with Concord?
I can speak to that. I've been working with Concord almost on a daily basis.
Okay.
And so we do have some more positive news. So we've been working out, originally there were 3 blocks. We were trying to move them down to 2 blocks to see if that could help us with the busing.
And you're talking about CRTC,
For
just to be clear.
CRTC.
Yeah.
But we're not able to do that because it's conflicting with other schedules for their classes. So we stepped away from that. And so the next solution was to have, instead of having students picked up midday after C block, we're going to have them picked up at the end of the day. So they'll be dropped off in the morning, and then they'll be picked up at the end of the day as if they were normally there. So Concord is able to find space for them to log on remotely to any of the other classes that they need to attend, so that they shouldn't miss. Some of the problem we were having is some of the students that would be leaving after C block would be missing some of their instructional time on their way home. So we obviously don't want that happening. So the best solution we could come up with is just have them there all day. We're hoping this is all a temporary solution anyway, and hopefully they'll all be back. But for now, that was the best solution we could come up with. I've spoken with Dale. We're working through the list of students that are signed up for CRTC, figuring out who's going to need a bus, who's not. I did send you over, probably right before I left, because I had an appointment, but the list is updated more. There are a few students we're still trying to get a hold of, but the majority of them we do have some information. So we're working through it. So we're a lot further than we were last week. And the fact that they're able to find space there, when originally they wanted them to not be there, so it's a positive. We're moving in a good direction.
Yeah, so once we get those, we can actually look and see where everybody is, and depending on number of kids, split it into runs. We're not going to do just the regular runs, because it'd be so limited. You got to count 2 kids on which run is over here, but we'll group it so that they're not too full on the bus. On the ride, but they get into 1 or 2 weeks, whatever is necessary, so that we can do it efficiently and not be over. So I assume you want the same class in high school and we're doing high school for 2,600. So that's what we're looking at. So as soon as we get that, we'll sort through it. Again, a couple of parents called me. One lady calls me every other day. I said, I promise I will call you. They're making And we are doing the orientation then for the freshmen. Concord contacted us and I talked to Patty, so they had split up the freshmen into 3 sessions. One this afternoon, we're doing 2 tomorrow. So we took that list of all those families who needed a ride and developed groups for those. So, we'll do 2 sessions tomorrow, 8 to 11 and 12 to 3.
And we're covered already for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that all set and done.
All right.
Thank you for
I
doing
think
that.
it's looking like, from the information that I've been provided from Concord so far, that we most likely are gonna be able to get all these kids on the bus. A lot of them are self-transporting.
Yeah, they're older students usually when they do CRTCs. We have lessons with older students.
Thank you, Amber, for doing that,
You're welcome.
being on top of that.
Awesome. All right. Nate?
Anything with, there was another question from an email last week about sports in the afternoon, and I don't know whom this should be directed at, but is there a way to do sports? Have we talked about that? I don't know. It was,
But I don't know that what we can do about sports.
Referring to high school?
high school sports. I mean, high school sports. Yeah, that was one of the questions that,
I wouldn't know that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We've never provided
Done that.
transportation necessarily for high school sports. It's been buses to school and buses back from school. We've always talked about late buses, but never really been able to put one together. So I mean, at this point, we haven't taken anything away.
Right.
We are just continuing to not provide transportation for high school sports.
and how many buses currently are we using then to do all of this, which sounds like a pretty good solution at the moment. How many buses are we using? For the whole fleet, for DCS and also Concord?
Right now, we'll be using 2 tomorrow for just the high school, because we can't use one to get them back and forth. Next week, we'll be using 1 possibly for the CRTC kids, and we're using 7 for elementary right now.
So,
Okay.
so we've satisfied the obligation for the elementary busing for the time being.
For the time being.
Okay. And then high school busing obviously we're not utilizing all 3 of them. We wouldn't be utilizing all 3 of the buses anyway.
Right, yeah,
I'm assuming invoicing will reflect.
yeah, I can help you.
Okay, yeah, you can, all right.
And then, go ahead, go Paul.
One more, sorry for Amber. In your communication with Concord, it sounds like the CRTC students are a little bit older anyway, mostly probably juniors and seniors, I would expect. And so I don't know that they need to have direct supervision all day, but essentially part of the question I would assume with Concord is there staff in the building to sort of keep an eye on them or something like that?
In the areas that these students will be in, there will be a staff in there kind of monitoring the area.
Great, thank you.
With the CRTC kids in that conversation with Concord, it sounds like that issue of the CRTC kids missing virtual blocks would apply to the Concord students as well, or is this uniquely a Deerfield issue that we're kind of
It was a
addressing?
Deerfield issue because it was the transportation. It was like when they would leave C block, which would be, I think it was like 12:45. For them getting back to Deerfield, they would have another class during that time period. So they would miss some of the instruction during that time. So if they're in Concord already, they're not gonna miss any instruction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes just to get back to Deerfield, and then you gotta drop them off, so.
So I know it's gonna make for a longer day for them, but if they were typically in school, they would be there during those hours.
Even earlier.
Even earlier, yeah.
I was gonna say there may be other CRCT kids there too, because it's a regional tech, so they could be coming from other places in Concord, and those kids would be having the same problem.
Similar
They'd be riding back to
Because it's
Belmont, and
They come from where?
it's a larger,
They have a lot of schools.
Well, I think what they did is they mixed up the cohorts to try to have, Deerfield students with Concord students, and I think 1 or 2 other schools, so it's like, and then they grouped another group of schools together
Based
with
on
some
region,
Concord.
that-
What's that?
based on region.
Yes.
Andy,
I just had to follow up, last week's meeting, we talked about we're gonna have 2 buses for 30 days, and then, I guess, 2 buses for 2 weeks, or other buses for a limited period of time because other schools are remote.
Right.
Or I guess, do we have any plans, or are we thinking forward about in 2 weeks, where are we gonna
I
be?
thought until today, so we get. Right now, there's nothing on the horizon yet, as anything coming down for the change.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, right now, 2 weeks from now, it'll be the same routes, same.
Yeah, I guess so. I really couldn't tell you, definitely about that, how we're gonna pull it off. But we have the two drivers are kind of drivers, so they will be in service on 14th after one of the schools. They also are short, they're short 3 drivers, but they're on the tree as well. So it's not just the airfield. I was last 5 or 6 more in the last week or so because of COVID. We have a lot of older drivers, so we're down 20 plus all over. Barrington, short, 89 districts, short in pretty much every single one. So.
It's like, how's that gonna affect us
It's,
with,
I mean, realistic.
that goes to, I think, whatever we had calendar or something like that, or next meeting type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, we need to revisit this. I think we're gonna end up meeting probably in 2 weeks, because there's, next week, I think there's an executive board meeting.
Yep.
It's an item further down the agenda, but we're probably gonna ask you, Kelly, to try to get us an update in a couple of weeks. Obviously, the drivers are gonna be an issue, and that is a hotter topic for us around this table, and it's not directed at you by any means, because I know you're, doing everything you can, but we need a solution.
Yep.
So.
Everybody's looking because everybody's short, but, for some reason, there's other places that are staying remote for a while. In other parts of our state, our primers or whatever. If everybody from that, we will have to stay with you, they come. It's just a matter of everybody right now is two single and analysis and trying to make the decision to get. So we're starting to see that. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something we have to stay on top of, and obviously, 4 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, we wanna have this.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
So if you're unable to get additional drivers, will you be presenting a plan of how you will have to do multiple runs in order to get the students here? And when would we see something like that?
Probably gonna be at least another week or so, but we hopefully I can do that by the time we come back.
Okay, and if a need, obviously transportation is crucial to our being able to operate the school. And if this board needs to meet in between its meetings, let Amber and the superintendent know, and if we need to call a meeting, we'll call a meeting, but, we have to have transportation, so whatever is necessary, we have to have those discussions. Okay, if there's no additional questions, we do need to approve the routes.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Look for a motion to approve the routes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jeff Kelly, seconded by Nate Oxnard. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Routes are approved.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Kelly.
Not easy.
I hope you go home and rest at least for a few hours tonight.
Yeah, 4 o'clock in the morning at work is getting really old.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right, next up, review of correspondence. I received one email very late today that I did not forward over to Patty. I'm going to send it to her for discussion at our next meeting. Does anybody else have any other correspondence that we needed to discuss?
Do you want to discuss Gigi's letter? Right, you're ready to.
Do we want to get into that now? Sure. Okay.
Since it's correspondence.
Is it packet?
Outgoing correspondence, but correspondence nonetheless. All right. Gigi's, I would say, why don't we let you start it off? It's not.
Oh, it's maybe last.
I think it's in last week's folder.
I'm gonna just look at the copy that Patty has on her.
Yeah, you're fine.
That's why I keep this bad, Larry.
Jeff, do you want your email for your feedback?
I got it right here. Thank you, Patty.
Oh, okay, so Jeff's email was to you. Yes. Okay. So I have been thinking, prior to COVID-19, that, many schools, if not the majority, have, moved towards competency-based education. And, the state gives a lot of leeway in terms of local control, but sets minimum standards for the length of the year. Based on an agrarian calendar, back when we were harvesting the vegetables and planting in the spring, and so it really kind of is not, it's a little bit incongruous to have say that, well, when you demonstrate these competencies, then you're competent, but, oh, by the way, you have to sit in this seat for 180 days or 990 hours, based on, and everybody's gotta do that. So I was thinking that it would be great if districts had a little more flexibility in the calendar, for both teachers and students about how long they're required to go. Then when the pandemic hit, I just felt like so many other really important decisions were put on local school board's agenda, and yet we still didn't have the ability to have flexibility in when we can end the school year. And flexibility in the schedule. So anytime during the school year where we go, oh my goodness, you know, we check the temperature of the school metaphorically, and I mean emotional temperature, not physiological. And people, you know, are a little stressed or whatever, and we feel like, you know, people could really use a long weekend could be inserted here. We're always worrying about, oh, well, we can't do that because then there is, you know, because then there's this, you know, then there's this other end that we always have to worry about. We always have to worry about adding on days and hours. So I wrote this letter, and I understand that there are probably maybe teacher negotiations to be considered with that letter as well, but I wrote it with the intent to suggest that maybe the Board of Education and the Department of Ed think about relaxing that minimum standard, or you know, giving school boards more flexibility in helping districts set calendars that work for them. So that was kind of the intent of the letter. And then I just laid it out in draft form, and you know, I'm not married to the wording, so you know, it sounds like Jeff took a crack at it, and anybody else is willing to take a crack at it. But I just thought, and I was thinking that it might be interesting to see if there are other school boards that are interested in signing on. Because I'm sure it's a situation that, you know, especially at the end of last year, I think it became an issue probably for so many boards and districts.
All right.
I just had, before we get into the details of the letter, I just wanted to sort of talk about a little bit of a logistical issue. So I think sending it to the state board is perfectly reasonable, but I think because it's in ed law, that it would need to go before rulemaking, and you'd have to have a rep. One of the state reps sponsor the writing of a law or a bill to go through rulemaking. So I think that's why nothing could be relaxed last year, because it's written into law and they can't relax the laws. So that was my understanding at the end of the day. That was the explanation that we were given. So I think submitting this and trying to find a state rep, you know, maybe Dave Doherty, because he was on the education committee, would be willing to sponsor a bill. I think that would need to be done in tandem.
So you're saying that the minimum standards are not just standards that the state has, that DOE
Correct.
has set, but
Correct.
they're actually,
Yes.
those are.
Yeah, it's an RSA. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, most certainly, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's occurring in education this year that is outside of what I'm sure these standards allow. Remote education, hybriding education, all these things, right, that are not the state,
No, remote learning was in there.
the current standards. I thought that was just per executive order until a certain date.
So distance learning was in there. So the only restriction in, trying to think about where it is, gave 5 days, a maximum of 5 days. So that 5 days was relaxed.
Okay. Well, I thought that was in the governor's executive order.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, but that had a timeline. That wasn't in
His
perpetuity.
order, yes, correct.
So we're operating now outside of that executive order from that.
So does it make sense to write the governor a letter? And is there anything that he can do? Just,
I think the
By
reality,
executive order.
yeah, I mean, I think the reality of it is, you know, and
we want somebody to move and do something.
well, yeah, I mean, so we're not alone, right? Every school district in the state is grappling with,
Right.
how do you deal with this, right? And so everybody, unfortunately, due to a lack of guidance in Concord, has been forced to come up with their own decisions and their own methodologies and their own reasonings for doing what they're doing. So without a relaxing of standard, theoretically, by the end of next week, we've used all of the remote days, whatever term they use, but the remote days that would be allowed under the current laws. So action needs to realistically occur, action should occur somewhere. And maybe that's, you know, should be more directed at the governor's office and the governor's council as opposed to the commissioner of education. The letter, I think, covers kind of like hits at multiple things, and for me, the urgency is more about relaxing the standards to the extent of allowing us to operate the way we need to operate this year given the circumstances, and still know that we're satisfying whatever the state outlines as a objective, right? So that's kind of, I guess, my thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Yuch.
Just another piece of information, I did contact Dave Doherty already, and he, was a former, board member, former guidance counselor, and, now a current, representative, and he was not, though he thought that it would be something that he would be very interested in sponsoring, he felt that the legislative body is not operating right now until they get back on, like, I think they're not getting back together, so I don't know, I don't wanna misquote him. But it's for a while, and he said that, until they manage to get it through committee and then to the full body, it would be the end of the school year by the time anything happens. So, he was not as hopeful, that route, so I wanted to just say that I went that route.
I think, so I agree with the premise, but I think there's two things at play in the letter. If we're gonna, send it, I think we need to be very clear on what it is we're trying to accomplish, because in May, we want to end the year early because we were all just miserable and everything sucked. And it was like, how do we end this as quickly as possible? In playing devil's advocate, while I agree with you, I would also say to myself, that's not a good reason to just end something because we're not doing it correctly, right? Like, we can do it better. We're doing it better this year. So I would look at it and say, well, that's not a good reason to end the year. The competency-based education, I think, makes sense. But then I look at myself and it's like, this is a monumental task of upending education because we need some benchmark, right? Like, 990 is arbitrary. Then I was sitting there as I was responding to your letter. I'm like, well, what is enough, right? And it's like, I just go down rabbit holes. And the next thing I know, I'm like, all right, is it just the Wild West? So I support it, and I want to help you. I'm so out of my league as far as, so that was my feedback.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that it really is the district kind of giving feedback to the boards and saying, and working together and understanding, like, really the pulse of what's happening in the district for this year. You know, for next year, you know, maybe there are other benchmarks. The rigidness of the schedule, I think, is always challenging. I wish I could think of some other instances where the rigidness of the schedule is challenging for when you need to be flexible, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but in general, the rigidness of the school schedule sometimes is not conducive to what might be best for the students at the time. So, I had an example that I was trying to think of. But at any rate, you know, for this year, I mean, we've been given we've been left with, and the administration has been left with these very important decisions about whether to have a hybrid model, everybody in the building, 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart, all these other important decisions. But yet that particular decision to have flexibility in the schedule is not there. And I hear what you're saying. I guess I just probably have faith that it wouldn't be the Wild West. It could be the Wild West around the state, like, oh, this school is ending in April and this school is ending in July. But for us, I feel like it would be based on really just working closely with our administration and just trying to have a pulse on what's happening and what are the needs of the school, and do they require some flexibility in the schedule. That was kind of my thinking for this year. And then I could go down another big rabbit hole with you in terms of competency-based education and upending like the starts and the beginnings of school, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, Andy?
Well, I was just gonna take a different approach, and it sounds like if we're not gonna move on the language in the document today, it sounds like we're talking about potentially issuing a letter to the governor, and then my assumption is that for him to entertain it, we'd want to include some sort of proposal or recommendation. So I don't know if we socialize this concept at the executive board meeting, and we see if we can get buy-in from them, ideas from them, kind of collaborate on a either unified message or a proposal or a recommendation or an ask. That way, it's not just like, hey, there's 180 days that we're working against and 990 hours. Like, we want you to remove some of that stuff. I think in addition to this, there needs to be like, this is what we're thinking, because then they're going to take a chop at it.
So my thought was going to be the same thing, ask Nate to bring it to the executive board. Having Deerfield make an ask is much less significant than having SAU 53 make an ask, which would be much less significant than having 53 and whatever other SAUs may be willing to participate. The other thing is, if the executive board and the other districts are interested, I would even consider asking Dean to write the letter on behalf of the boards to say, because he can include the legal needs that would be, necessary. Okay?
I have two concerns about this. Or two questions, I guess. One is, I wouldn't want to go out on a limb and not represent our administration. So I guess I would first want to get a feel for our own administration, what their perspective would be on this. I know you've worked in the building and you've got a unique perspective that way, but I would be curious what our current administration feels about this. And then also, before going too far, the other concern I have is that, sort of to the Wild West comment, right, I agree that currently with our board and with our administration here, I don't know that we would end up out in left field. And, but at the same time, there are different towns in the state, there are different boards in the state, and even within one district, boards change over the course of 10 years. Removing that sort of statute or asking for changes to the legislation, would that then just create the potential for this district in 10 years to become let's stop school on April 1st and call it good, because different elections go different ways. And so I guess I don't see that now, but is that something that would be sort of this precedent that we might open up by pursuing this? I don't know.
I don't know if I can respond to that, but I mean, it might be more along the lines of when, based on the competency-based education that we're doing, if at some point we determine that a student has, completed fifth grade halfway through the year, like what's the cost, not cost benefit, but what's the value in them continuing to, be in school potentially if they've achieved all the things that we've either already documented or defined that they need to and have to do within that year to be able to move on. So I don't know if.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, to chime in briefly, is what we're venturing towards in this conversation is a rewriting of the way education works, and we are not the people to address that.
I think you are, Zach.
I mean, I can just do it the way I want.
Yeah,
but,
there you go.
That isn't necessarily right. So I think, to me, the immediate need is that there may be a need for some flexibility for this year, right? And so I think does the board's ask to have this as part of a discussion with the executive board? Is that my take from this?
Yeah.
I support that.
At minimum, yeah. I'd be interested in
And then
what
Nate
other
can
folks have.
bring us up to speed after his executive board meeting.
Yeah, he can, the agenda's done, but he could certainly ask to add it to the agenda under agenda review, and I'm sure the boards would be open to that.
All right.
When is the meeting? I probably should know about this,
Next
but
week.
oh, good, thank you.
Next Wednesday.
Glad we had this conversation.
Let's
Thank
further
you.
down on the agenda.
Right. Excellent.
All right. So I'd say let's wait to hear back from Nate and the executive board, and then we can discuss further from there. Reasonable? Everybody happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask just a quick question about Patty? I think at one point, it might have been in public comments, I think Kevin might have mentioned that the commissioner already had relaxed the standard for this year. And I went back and tried to look in the notes from at least the NHSBA, and I couldn't find anything on that. Have you heard? Like, I don't want to put something forth and there's already, oh yeah, you have like a 15-day flexibility.
The only thing I'm aware of is we were granted 3 days for professional development.
Okay.
So that was kind of forgiven.
Right, okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
So that would be a reduction of 3 days from the 100.
It would count towards student days, the 3-day prep,
All right.
yep.
Okay, anything else on this one? All right, we're moving on. Item F, added calendar. Patty, you're up.
Yes, so we had talked a little bit earlier about the Deerfield Fair Day, and Brian asked that on the behalf of the administration and the staff that we would like to have that as a school day.
So moved. I moved it.
Second.
Second.
It's October 2nd, just so that we're,
And so school day is like the school's in session.
yes.
Yes,
Instead of having to
that would
do it
be, yeah, and that would work into be a bonus day, Friday, correct? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. It is up for discussion. Discussion? Jeff?
So would the students, cohort A or B would be in the building? Or,
We would,
Whatever the schedule is.
whatever the schedule is,
Yep.
there you go.
Finish, good.
so in the goal of this is to, I'm guessing, create more buffer towards the end of the year if we end up in a similar situation?
Correct, yes. So right now, if we were the governor granted the 3 professional development days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week. That left us with Monday and Tuesday, kind of like the makeup time in order to still get us to the last day of school. If we add Deerfield Fair Day, that puts us the last day at the 17th. And so that gives, if we didn't add a Deerfield Day, that leaves us as the 18th, which is a Friday. And it's always sketchy having that Friday as the last day because if we have more than our 5 a lot of snow days that we have built in. So now we're looking at coming back on the 21st and 22nd. So it gives a little bit of a buffer there. Yeah. So.
Since you brought it up, I have heard of some districts I haven't heard, I guess, this definitely, but I've heard rumor of, with some districts, for speaking of my own, Oyster River, we are, the whole district well, not the whole district, the high school, we're all remote. And in that model, the idea of a snow day doesn't make as much sense anymore. Unless it's like a, blizzard of 76 kind of thing and all the power lines go down. But have you thought about, would that, so in terms of planning ahead for 5 snow days, if we have a remote model kind of in the works, I know we're planning on in the next 3 weeks, if we can, flipping back to a full open, but let's say hypothetically, is it possible that we'd be able to absorb snow days in a different way than we have been able to in the past?
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Okay.
I think it depends on the storm.
Yeah.
Like Deerfield has, there was rain the other day and people's internet was down. So, I'm just saying.
Okay.
It really would depend, don't you think? Especially if we're gonna be remote, it'd be one thing if they had paper packets at home and that type of thing, but remote means getting on with your teacher in the morning and working through the course of the day.
And
Okay.
a driver of that may be is whether or not we can open the building per se, not necessarily, right?
We can plan the day before, if we know there's a storm, we can tell teachers to be prepared to work from home if need be, bring us, whatever they need. But that's what I would do in the morning, I would just figure out if it's 4 inches that would have canceled school because of the timing, then that's not a big deal to have it as a remote day, but if it's a blizzard with, a foot of snow plus and we might lose power, then we
We
think.
need the kids outside shoveling that.
Right, absolutely, I'll pass that on.
But these are things you've talked about though, and you're talking about them. Okay.
I mean,
Looks like you have to
again,
approve shovel purchase.
if we know ahead of time, then we can tell kids to take home their Chromebooks. But if this happens, if it's on a Monday morning, there's no opportunity to get those,
Okay.
find out Saturday,
Okay.
So, yeah, we have talked about it. We talked about, we kind of joke, we don't ever have to have a snow day again. So, yeah, it's remote stuff, but there are hiccups to that, so, and plans that we worked out. And I'm not, is 80%, is that still like a rule, Patty?
The what?
Wasn't that at one point, you have to have 80% of your population has to be on, or is that, was that kind of
I think that's
like
that was relaxed too.
right?
Yeah.
And that was under the last year's executive order, but I don't know what that looks like going forward again, so.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Right.
Should be a new round of
Yeah,
executive orders.
I think that some things have been extended, but every executive order, like Executive Order 64 refers to what 7.5 said, and it's detective work to trace it all.
But yes, simple answer is yes, we've had this discussion.
All right, Gigi.
So this might be a moot point then, but I was gonna say, does that feel like, because the snow day issue, that's the best use of that? I was thinking, you get to the end of September and go, oh, would you agree for us to have a regroup day? So we'll have the students are off, but the teachers are here.
I think, we have that the following week for Columbus Day.
You got it, okay.
Yeah, I think right now, just looking at that Deerfield Fair Day, I think that would be the best thing for about, instead of waiting until June 18th. Because who knows what June 18th will look. We can make it that way.
All right, additional discussion regarding adding Deerfield Fair Friday back into the calendar as a school day.
It hurts.
It does.
It's the first Deerfield Fair in a long time where I don't have to be there. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye, it is unanimous. That takes care of that. All right, next up, meeting schedule. So next Wednesday, there is an executive board meeting, which Mr. Oxnard will be at with our superintendent.
Little did you know.
Yeah. I didn't want to be missing out on a meeting on a Wednesday night. I really enjoy the pattern here.
Want you to enjoy every Wednesday.
Yep.
So I would say, at minimum, my thought is that we do not hold a meeting next week, and we have a meeting in 2 weeks. I think we have put a pretty big ask on the administrators as well, and maybe they'd like to go home on a Wednesday night. So
They're always welcome at the executive board meeting.
you're welcome at the
if they're
executive board
interested.
meeting.
Very nice of you guys.
Is it in Pembroke? It's always in
It
Pembroke.
is, yeah.
It's in Pembroke, it's close to
Only
home
about
for
the
you,
principals
Principal
are
Whitty?
going.
So,
Hearing.
as far as for next week, I would say if the board, unless the board has some pressing business that they want to discuss, we'll hold off on that meeting. And then we will meet again in 2 weeks, which would put us on the 16th. All right, except for Nate. Nate gets to go to have a meeting anyway.
Awesome.
Sorry, budget season's coming. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Nate and I did not want to have a Wednesday off.
Oh, no way.
All right, everybody comfortable with that? Yep. Okay. Let's see here, Patty, let's talk about your decision-making matrix.
So, I added some information as I promised I would update. This is as of, I think I got it yesterday, so hopefully not too much has changed. It's 7-day rolling average. So you can see that some more counties entered into the yellow zone. Very, very minor changes though. And last night we talked in Pembroke and I thought it was a good suggestion that I would incorporate into your matrix as well, and that was just to put the county that you're in that one box, so you would only see Rockingham County, and then the other counties would be in the detail on the second page, just to keep it easy for you to look at, and then, you know, I could add, I think in Pembroke, I've been working on it today, under data, I could just add the other counties so that you're kind of aware of what's going on around the state, but it doesn't have to be all in that box, you'll just have Rockingham in that box. And then also including Deerfield, the town. So the Rockingham County and then the town of Deerfield in that first box. Obviously, we've stayed the same with 0 cases in the school. We also talked about maybe highlighting the areas so that the board has a good visual. So at the next meeting, we would, highlight the box that we feel we fall in under each category. So, yep, we have plenty of staff, we're covering it. Yep, we have plenty of supplies, so we're in the green in that area, and then you can kind of have a visual to look at.
Knowing that this is in the driving color, but we're discussing it.
I know, that's the important part.
Can this come to us in color, please?
Yes. Sure. Sorry about that. Yeah. So the counties that you can see highlighted at the top, those are yellow.
I'm looking at all this, and I looked at it in the drive earlier
Great
today.
county.
And then Deerfield is highlighted in green.
In green, okay, yeah.
Because they're 0, so they're in the green zone.
Looks like gray on mine.
It's not.
Yeah, okay.
Listen, do you see that sign hanging on that color printer back there? Don't use, jam it.
Is that our color printer?
Yes.
I have access at the SAU for color.
Do you?
And I can hook you up.
We have the requisition. 8 color pages.
Is there any way we can get this on the school's Facebook page or the website so that the whole community, because I was telling my friends and neighbors about it.
Yeah.
That way people can see if we're headed
Yeah,
towards an
sure.
open or.
Yeah. I can just send it, I'll just send it to you guys and then Brooke can put it wherever you want to put it. Yeah, but he's talking about for the public. So Brooke could put it on the webpage or wherever,
Gotcha.
so people could see it, if you don't mind.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll try to make sure it's in the drive so you can grab it from
It
there.
is what it is. It's a public document. The moment we touch it anyway, so.
Yeah, I might as well put it out there, absolutely.
Yeah, when, sorry, when is it, you said it's updated every 7 days?
No, it's, the information on the site is in a 7-day rolling average, but I update it before each meeting, each board meeting. With all that being said, today, we had the commissioners call at noon, and he announced that DHHS released a model for making decisions between, which is so helpful on December, feels like December.
Feels like
September 2nd, after people have fended for themselves to try to figure this out. So I'll take a look at that, and we may want to steal something from it. I don't know what it looks like. I haven't seen it. And he also mentioned that the dashboard has been updated, so it now has a school tab, so you can see by school in the state how many cases there are in a specific school. So I will take a look at
Was
that.
that the New Hampshire DHHS?
Yeah, the interactive dashboard, and then DHHS has the school models. I have it bookmarked, but I haven't had time to look at it today. We just found out around noon.
That's great.
Yeah,
Great
so, but hey, if it's better or has more information, we'll steal from it. So.
All right, additional questions regarding the current status of our matrix? None. All right, moving on. Next up, where are we? Board reports. Does the PTO have an update? Go ahead, PTO.
We had a meeting last night at Andy's house, thank you, Andy.
I wasn't there.
Thanks for the space. We have decided we're trying to come up with socially distant fundraisers, things that we not having product shipped here. We're gonna make Zach very happy. And offer the unfundraiser this year.
Sign me up.
There will be a letter going home and a form to fill out if you'd like to participate. Send you a check-in.
I like the way you roll, Tina.
20% will still go to the students' IBA accounts for the 6th and 8th grade field trips. The other 80% will go to PTO.
Okay.
And we are still going to do a town-wide yard sale October 10th. And we are going to do spirit wear, sweatshirts, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, and masks. We have cloth masks with the school logo on them that people can purchase for their kids. They also have adult sizes for teachers or parents who want them, and they can be personalized for an additional charge.
Cool. Any questions for the PTO? Thank you very much for everything you do. I'm excited about your fundraiser. Mrs. Langlois will provide you with a check.
Looking forward to it.
All right. That goes to PTO report. We do not have a CHS or staff or executive board report or CRB report. So the only item we may have would be from Principal Wood.
No PowerPoint presentation, Google presentation. Patty was very disappointed.
I'm looking for it.
So this report would be from last Thursday to today. So over the course of the week, we welcomed our teachers and our staff back. Monday, Tuesday of last week, we have our professional development lined up for the week. It was planned out literally day by day, because depending on what the outcome was of one day was, it rolled into the next day. Next time I plan a pandemic, I'll do that a little differently. But it all worked out really nicely. So we started off our week with some small group physically distanced welcome back meetings, tried to put a little normal into our very unabnormal return. Bonnie Heisey did a presentation to small groups as well regarding current practices and guidelines that we have in place. Got a lot of good information to teachers and staff and got a lot of questions asked and answered. We had a good amount of extended time for teacher to teacher this year, which is one of the big requests that teachers had made, was to be able to meet with their last year's teacher for this year's teacher, depending on who had what kids. That went very well. That lined us up for the next bit of PD, which was vertical grade level meetings. So first grade met with second grade, talked about the things that they covered, the things that they weren't able to cover from the springtime, so that that next grade level would know going into the following bit of PD, which was getting some curriculum work done, taking a look at essential standards. Got a lot of positive feedback from that. So our ELA, our English language arts, our math specialists worked with grade levels K through 8. Grade level at a time. They worked with kindergarten one morning and kindergarten, the first grade. We had it all laid up. That took us 2 days to get through all of that. And really pulled out those essential standards. They looked at all the I can statements and figured out what do we need to start the year off, what do we need to make sure that we're really hammering home on. All of the research that has come out has said we really can't go backwards and teach what they should have gotten, that we move forward with what our curriculum is, filling gaps as we go along. Today is a perfect example of how much further we're going to be able to get with kids in these small cohort groups. The teachers were really, it was a great day today for people to realize how much they'll be able to give kids one-on-one attention or individualize their small group instruction. Just those few groups, just our small cohort groups. So from that team, also science, the science teachers met, in social studies to just figure out what some of those essential standards were to start off the year with. And our IA teams did as well. We also had a lot of team time to work on all things hybrid, what was gonna look like in school for in-school instruction, what was the at-home learning piece going to look like. So we gave them time to work on those things, and each team developed their hybrid at-home learning piece based on what their style was and how they felt would best support their kids. So some people will be using Google Classroom. We were able to get Seesaw, which is a very popular platform for we got it for K-3. So it's a lot like Google Classroom, but a little more user-friendly. Teachers are planning on teaching their kids how to use it so that if we do have to pivot to remote or on those at-home days that they're learning, they would be able to access independently their Seesaw assignments and be able to turn things in. And so teachers plan on doing they have to do some training too. It's pretty user-friendly. There's not a lot of, it's very intuitive. Teachers will be able to pick it up very quickly. So especially because a lot of them have used Google Classroom and there's a lot of similarity to it. We ended our week, as you know, with each team pushing out some sort of virtual slideshow or video or something that felt right for their team to do. They pushed that out on Monday, and on Tuesday we had grade levels meet with parents and students on a Google Meet. The time of that was challenging because a lot of people did have to work, but a lot of teachers said that they had some pretty good participation of families that were able to make it. It was just a half an hour to get some quick questions and answers. They made themselves available by email after if they had follow-up questions for afterwards. And again, every team did a little differently. Second grade started at the front door and walked their computers through the building down the hall to get to their classrooms, and third grade just met with their kids, and they had one of the third grade teachers was telling me how well trained the kids are on Zoom etiquette, because Zoom was the big platform that we used during springtime, but we won't be able to use it moving forward. Zoom is becoming part of the Canvas platform, which is what the state of New Hampshire is pushing out for everything is on their Canvas platform. We're sticking with our Google Classroom and the platforms that we have here. So we won't be able to use Zoom. It's very expensive to be able to use it, and so we're going to continue our work with Google Meets, which is hopefully going to be very similar to Zoom. Right now it doesn't have as many features as Zoom did, but they knew how to mute themselves. They knew how to, raise their hand to have a question asked. So even just the little ones from all the way up knew how to do that. Which, ironically, when you're thinking back to the first time they ever got on Zoom, this particular teacher I was talking to was like, it was a hot mess. Kids were all over the place. They weren't muting. So it was very nice this time around because they all had that etiquette down pat. And let's see. We ended our week, like I said, with our Google Meets. Teachers, we met, and the administration team met with individual grade levels just to answer any last-minute questions that people might have, put people at ease to start our day today. We had pizza lunch delivered, 25 pizzas. Well, we had 12 cheese pizzas, and we had 12 veggie pizzas, but Mrs. Withy wanted a pepperoni pizza. So we had to order a pepperoni pizza for the principal, please, and I kept my mask on when I said that. So the other, so that was what professional development this past week was leading up to the first day of school today for our cohort A. It was so awesome having our kids back in the house. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But quickly, we do have the remote learning update that we have. Our teachers are working on developing the framework. Our 3 teachers that are teaching the K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have been in the building for a lot of the PD last week. We had given them a lot of time to meet together or meet with the teams and do some collaboration. So we're still working on putting those pieces together. I know that the teachers have notified the families, have reached out to them and said, you're in my class for the first half of the year. And our numbers in our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade seem to be pretty much leveling off. We did have a few people that should have been at school today, and when the phone call was made, they're like, oh yeah, well, we're doing remote, so we have to, okay, well, we didn't know that. So we're trying to get that piece ironed out a little bit. So our 6th grade numbers right now, we have 8 students remote, 7th grade is 9, and 8th grade is 8. But our elementary, K1, we're climbing into that area where it is getting a little tricky. Our K1 team, our team together, class together will be 18 students. Our 2nd, 3rd graders together will be 17 students, and our 4th and 5th will be 14. So we have a little wiggle room for 4th and 5th grade, but our K1, 2, 3 classes are climbing up there in terms of numbers. Hopefully it'll level out this week, but I do have some families that have told me if I'm not comfortable with hybrid and I want to switch to remote, how would I go about doing that? And it's just something for the board to be aware of. I'm thinking that we really would have to cap our remote learners at a certain number. I'm comfortable with 20, but can't ask, one teacher to teach 25 remote learners. That's a lot of kids, so I don't know. I guess that's just something for you to be thinking about. And so a couple other things with our middle school, as we're flushing out this remote learning, developing the plan, our 6th grade numbers are pretty high. As you know, this is the biggest, if we had all our 6th graders in the building, it would be at 70. We have 70 6th graders. So this is that big 5th grade class, that was the big 4th grade class, that became the big 3rd grade class. This is the year they all moved in. So we have had some students move out, but we have had quite a few new registrations this summer. And so our, as you know, we're going to be offering remote learning to our middle schoolers on cohort B day. And 6th grade has almost 30 kids in their cohort Bs. So what this would affect is when one teacher is having their office hours or teaching during that block of time, her cohort kids would be divided between the other 2 cohorts that are either having study or
Both social studies.
both social studies.
Yes, yeah.
But then we have the study and the media lit and the health. So
So essentially what's happening I'm just more into the scheduling piece. So essentially what happens, all the classes are 3 teachers teaching at the same time, and then for social studies, 2 teachers are going to teach it, and the other teacher would have their study, their office hours to meet with the remote kids. So that put those 30 kids now into 2 classrooms, which is above our 14-person mark. So we've gone back down to all 3 teachers teaching social studies, and we're going to have other people come in to do the study hall. So our math specialists and PLA specialists are going to hop into the 6th grade to help with study hall. That will provide the 3 teachers to do their study hall at the same time. But luckily, we're not at that point. We won't be at that point with 7th and 8th grade. But again, it's just this high number of class that makes it. The teachers aren't comfortable having 15, and if more kids move in, you're looking at 15, 16 in a room. So they're not comfortable with that at this point in time.
So the basic framework is still there, but they might do theirs. The way we do it in school might look a little different than what we're doing for 7th and 8th grade. But the basic framework is definitely still there. And then I just want to make sure that I mentioned the certified staff that we welcomed back into school. As you know, you approved of them to be hired, but Chris Kofis is our new facilities director, maintenance director, and he has done an amazing job in the short time that he's been here. I don't know how we would have even got the school open without him here. He was here late last night, turning off the water bubblers, and the last minute stuff that had to get done. He's here now, working with his staff. We're still looking to hire somebody. We might have somebody that can work part-time, but we're looking for somebody for a 12 to 8 block of time so that he doesn't have to stay late. But he has really done a nice job. He's set up all the teachers with disinfected microfiber cloths, and has the fogging machine that was generously donated to us. We weren't getting the electrostatic sprayers, so he canceled that order and got it from someone else. And has trained all his staff on how to use it at the end of the night. So that's rolling pretty nicely, but it wouldn't have been rolling without him. So a big shout out to Chris and his crew. As you know, 7th grade hired a new science teacher, Hillary Chapman. Jen Schaefer has joined us as a 4th and through 8th grade math specialist, and Joanne Franklin has joined us as a special education manager. So they're all up and running, and have had their first day today like we all did. And then we do have 5 UNH interns. We had 6, but our intern went to a different, lives in Maine, took another position. So Caitlin Caswell is with Mrs. Prisbolski in 2nd grade. Megan Rumble is with Miss Smith in 2nd grade, Olivia Smith. Amanda Gottlieb is with Sue Laskowski in 4th grade. Brittany Miser is with Lindsay Maxfield in 5th grade, and we have a PE intern this period of time, Jim Pagnoni. So they were with us all last week as well, doing all the training. They've been working with their teachers, and I told them if they can make it through this pandemic, they'll make it through anything in their teaching career, because it's between last year and this year. Anybody who was a first-year teacher or an intern of some sort, they definitely got their trial by fire for sure. So as you know, today was our first day of school for cohort A. Tomorrow is our first day of school for cohort B. Gigi was with us this morning, welcoming our students back to school. We had all hands on deck for our staff. They were all over the building this morning, making sure that our kindergartners got to where they needed to go, making sure our first graders got to, and making even sure that every middle schoolers got to where they needed to go. So all hands were on deck. All hands on deck out back as well. Mr. Reeves lost count of the cars, things, about 50-ish.
Maybe a little bit more, closer to 60. That's a lot. That's usually where we're at for all students in the building. So we're going to see where we're at for tomorrow. So if it pans out to be close, you're looking at 120, 130 cars per football. But again, that could be parents just because it's first day. We'll look at the numbers over the next 2 weeks to see what flushes out.
I get that. So anyway, all the students were temperature checked, and staff were temperature checked as they came into the building. Students were temperature checked as they came off the bus. The staff had requested that happen, felt more comfortable having that happen. CDC guidelines is that parents, the guidance that we got towards the end of the summer was that was being put back on parents, and the parents were temperature checking and making sure that their child had no new symptoms of any type coming to school. But the staff felt more comfortable with us doing the temp checks as they come off the bus. So that's what we did this morning. It was pretty quick because we didn't have a ton of kids getting off the bus. We were able, and it actually helped us with physical distancing while coming back into the building. And there was not one problem with the masks today. Okay, maybe there was one problem, but we worked through that. And they were adorable. Their kids, literally, the kids' masks matched their outfit. It has become a fashion statement for sure. We had, I'm sure tomorrow will be much of the same. And just, I would like to clarify a few things. On Monday, I did push out a lot of information to parents, including the draft handbook, COVID handbook that we were talking about. We wanted to get that to parents' hands because it does answer a lot of questions. I made sure to go over it with administration and with Bonnie before sending it out to make sure that everything was up to date as best we could. I explained that it will stay in draft form because it's an ever evolving. So we have to keep this handbook fluid in terms of new guidance that might come out. And I just want to make sure that I clarify that the school is by no stretch. We're not doing COVID testing here at this school. I have received a few emails from parents saying that they do not want their child tested at the school for COVID. They do not want us to quarantine their child at school. They do not want us to vaccinate their child at school, and that is not anything that we even suggested that we would offer. If a child comes into school, they're not feeling well, they'll go to the nurse will do a temperature check if they're showing some symptoms. And we've talked about just because you have a temperature doesn't mean you might have an ear infection, or you might have strep throat, or Mr. Reeves says you might be teething. So,
Just a little.
it's just a little funny that he threw it in there. So that it's important to note that if a child has a fever, then they will be going home. At that point, it would be recommended that they call their primary care physician and perhaps maybe have a COVID test, but that is just something that Heisey will talk them through. If a child has to be quarantined, or if anybody has to be quarantined, HHS will be brought into that process.
So there is not a COVID testing lab at DCS?
There is not.
There is not.
No, Mrs. Hughes, our science teacher, she might want to be, but I'm gonna say no, we stand strong.
I just want to make sure, because that was the rule.
No COVID testing at school, no quarantine.
So we're not vaccinating here at DCS?
I have a
So we're
kid-
leaving medical work to medical professionals?
We are, we absolutely
Amazing.
are, Mr. Langlois, yes.
Awesome. All right. Is that all you had? I'm sorry.
That's all I have.
So I want to thank you and Brian and Patty and everybody else that's been involved in getting this building going again after a 6-month nap. It's been a huge.
Who took a nap?
I said the building. I said the building took a 6-month nap. It's been a mammoth undertaking, and so I think I can speak for all of us. It was greatly appreciated, and all the effort that you guys have gone through and figuring this out. This wouldn't have worked without everything you've done. So to you guys and the rest of the staff and everybody involved, I think please extend our thanks. It's monumental what's been done. So thank you very, very much.
I just wanted to echo, just having been able to see the smoothness of everybody coming into the building this morning, like down to the smiley faces that are on the floor to help the primary kids stay 6 feet. I mean, the mental bandwidth that you spent getting all of those logistics down is just enormous, and I just wanted to echo that.
I think you have pretty thankless volunteer jobs too, and I would never want to miss an opportunity. After 20 years, I can tell you how much of a difference a supportive school board makes, and don't take that for granted. Seriously,
We all signed up for this.
You guys,
did, so.
but it doesn't matter if we agree. It doesn't matter if you vote the way we want you to vote. That is not what's important. What's important is that we're all here for the same reason, working toward the same goal, and that we feel supported and appreciated. So thank you. That's very much.
Do we have questions for our principal? Go ahead.
Were you aware of anybody accessing the outdoor classrooms today?
A few people did. It was because it was raining for the part of the day, but couple, fourth grade class, I was visiting the class and they were getting their shoes on and getting ready to go out. So I know first grade did.
Yeah, today was more of just like a tour day. See what it looked like, see the pictures and all that. So
Great.
Today was more of just check it out and see what it's out. And once again, Jack Hutchinson was out there. He knocked on my window, kind of scared us a little bit. And out of the school while we're just meeting him out. And drenched to the bone, but he was out there. He cleaned up a lot of the sites from the tarps being full of water and things of that nature, and kind of rearranged the poles to make sure that could be avoided. So he's done a lot of good work. And so he's also had the signs ready. So for the Langlois, the signs that you do. So
I need one of those in my theater.
So Jack is working on getting these up in the next week or two. We know that bear hunting has started as of yesterday or the day before.
I want to buy one of those.
I think
Yeah, where do we get
Did you
this?
ever think you were going to see a no hunting forest classrooms?
So I will buy one of those. I want to put it in my house. Because Jeff had a 7 o'clock hard kind of stop,
Yeah.
and I don't want to interrupt you and I want to come back to you, but there is, Patty has some information. I'd like it to be unanimous if it can be, regarding the MOU, so
Yeah.
Patty?
So we've worked really hard to come up with a memo of agreement with the Deerfield Education Association and the board. And I think that everybody worked really well together to come up with some good compromise while ensuring everyone's safety in the building and coming up with some good understandings and parameters for what work looks like during a pandemic. I know we've gone back and forth several times. I feel like we're at the point where we worked out all the little kinks and have some really good language, and I would love for us to be able to take care of that tonight.
And so if the board needs, everybody's had a chance to review the language. If the board needs to discuss it, we have to do that separately. But if everybody's reviewed the language and is comfortable with it, then I believe they would be authorizing me to sign it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Or they would approve it and then you can sign
Approve
it.
it, then
Yeah.
I would sign it on behalf of the board. So, do any of the members of this board need to discuss this, or are we comfortable with the language in the MOU?
Comfortable with it.
Okay, so then we would need a motion to authorize me to sign.
I will make a motion
Okay.
To approve the MOU.
to approve the MOU.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Which I guess it can't be. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So now I can sign this, correct? Okay, Jeff, thank you for staying late. Andy, did you note the minutes at 7:16? Jeff left the meeting? Okay, so
Actually absent for once.
Not absent.
you are not absent. All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Jeff. One. And two. Okay, so I apologize. We can go back to any other information you had, Brian. I Jeff had a 7 o'clock stop.
So Jack is, he's looking, and I got some information from Jeff about possibly, having a surveyor come and just walk, that boundary, of the property. He has tax maps and things of that nature, but he wants to kind of get like an very accurate.
Okay.
He doesn't want to end up putting this on someone else's property, so really, he's, well, going through that process right now.
Okay. There's also it would maybe helpful in that, it's not a survey, but I've used an application on my phone called OnX Hunt, which shows the property lines and the property owners. And I was trying to find the pins from the corners of my property. And I walked out, zoomed in, and it put me within like 3 feet of the pin. So I think it's a paid app after 10 days, but if you wanted to kind of just pace out there real quick and see, you could download it. And you can see the property owners for every parcel.
Excellent.
And it may be beneficial for you just to kind of get a general layout of where stuff is. OnX Hunt.
OnX Hunt.
Yes, there's a bunch of them, but that one shows you who owns the properties. There's other ones for trails and all sorts of.
I don't know if there's an interactive one, but Access GIS has a page for Deerfield. You can see like lot lines, measurements, and stuff like that, but it's not interactive. But
Yeah,
sounds
that
great.
one was, I just walked out with my phone and I was like, oh, it says I'm in the corner. I started kicking around. I found the pin. Went to the next corner, started kicking around, found the pin, and I was within feet of it every time. So it was pretty slick. Might be helpful. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so that concludes item 7, as well as the principal's report. That brings us to policies, which we have some new policies that are first readings.
Yes, so every, twice a year, we get updates from the School Board Association based on new legislation that has been approved to make sure our policies are up to date. So there's 3, we're gonna start putting them on, Kathy puts them on as we go, mostly the, policies that are required by law, we try to get through those first. So there's one on authorized signatures, one on payment procedures, and one on health education and exemption. So the sample policies have been provided, and Amber has given some input into the policies to do with the business office, and we'll put those on for a second reading at the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions regarding policies? None. All right. Informational items are covered. Nate, go ahead.
Hearing Principal Withy talk about our numbers of students has me again thinking about the building addition potential study work. And my question is, can we get that on the agenda? Can we
I would
start to come back to that?
Why don't we, in the past, we've always had that goal-setting meeting in the summertime. I think the board's goal is going to be pretty short, sweet, and heavy this year. So why don't we just have an agenda item for the next meeting, Patty? For the board to discuss its goals which I probably know what the two heavy ones are, and we'll start with that. Does that work for you? That works.
Would you like to go back to the format of the second meeting of the month being more focused on items like that and kind of maybe take off like board reports and the other kind of.
I would say we could probably lighten it up a little bit, but I think with everything else that's going on, there's still gonna be that, there's
Things
gonna
that
be
come up that we're gonna have to.
flexibility in the agendas, but, I mean, we can most certainly lighten it up with some of the board reports and stuff. But yeah, there's always gonna be, especially right now with the circumstances, stuff we need to handle. Hey, anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Anybody have anything else on our informational items that they want to bring up? Okay, that brings us to public comments. We now have some public. Do they have comments? Seeing none.
I have a comment.
Okay, you are public, you're allowed to comment.
I just wanna say from my window, it looked like a well-run machine out there.
Awesome.
Teachers, staff, students, happy, doing what they needed to do, going outside. It was nice to see.
I swung through on Monday, it was nice to see the building awake again, alive. It's good to see. So
Admin did a good job.
we have a remarkable staff across the board here at DCS, that's everybody.
Agreed.
All right, if there's no other public comments, we have no need to go to non-public, and we don't have any appointments or resignations. So I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Goodness.
Somebody? So moved by Gigi, seconded by Andy. Is there anybody that's gonna argue over this? No, all in favor? Thank you very much, everybody. It's an early night. Appreciate it.